We spent a long time here, Sandi, talking about music and your voice. In 1988, a guy wrote a book. I'm not telling you what you don't know, but for our audience, wrote a book saying, Sandi Patty, the voice of gospel. And it kind of, it's stuck as you were the voice because your vocal capacity, your range, and the power voice you have. But I just have to say, Sandi, one of your great gifts has been not just to be a power voice, because there are other power voices, but you have the capacity to be, when I say a power voice, someone who can project with real power, but also to bring that right down close and personal in the most intimate way that just pulls us in. The combination of your lyric commitment and the music strain of your language, so to speak. So good. But you are not your voice. In other words, the singing voice of Sandi Patty is not the sum of who you are. And I have another. There's Sandi Patty and there's Barbra Streisand. I'm fans. Karen Carpenter, I'm in. Another great voice vocalist that has just, you got to see me as a little 12-year-old guy watching The Sound of Music. But I was just dazzled by Julie Andrews. I mean, I just thought, this woman, she was just like... Everything. She just... The whole presentation of herself was just made me crazy. Yeah. And of course, we all know Julie Andrews had 4-octave range and, from a childhood star singing for the Queen and all that. And then in the late 90s, she gets a little cyst that is described as benign and not consequential. She's in between production of a Broadway show. They've taken a few weeks off. The stories I've read are that, her husband and the production staff said, why don't you just get that taken care of while you're off? And she has this surgery which removes her capacity to sing. I'm saying, I've read and heard you say that, even as a child, you weren't so secure, but you could see Julie Andrews singing that song, I've Got Confidence in the Sound of Music, and you could kind of hum that along. And this came to mind as I'm thinking about you, because for Julie Andrews, so far she hasn't agreed to be on the podcast. Maybe someday. But after she sees you here, I know she's in. But I'm guessing she went through a profound drama in her own sense of self, where she had a marker that so defined her, and suddenly it's gone. Of course, she's created a career without music. But,
yes, she has.
Have you heard of Bridgerton? But
exactly.
But let's go back to Sandi. What happens to Sandi when her voice isn't there? Or I know you've already kind of wrestled with this, that you are not your voice. You're not just your music. No. There's so much more there.
It's funny because when the record company felt like so many years ago, they needed to sort of brand whatever they were calling me. And so they came up with The Voice. And I just remember then thinking, man, if they only knew how much I don't feel like I have a voice to speak up. Just like you're saying, far beyond music. I didn't know how to speak up for myself. I didn't know how to speak up in my marriage. I didn't know how to speak up with people that I worked with. And I longed to find my voice just to be able to say normal things like a lot of people do. But I tried so hard to say what I thought somebody wanted me to hear that I lost knowing what defined me. And it wasn't until God really began to just do a work in my heart. First, I started Bible study fellowship, and then I started doing counseling and just began to change my identity. Who am I in Christ? That I began to feel like I could speak up about some things. And so that always just struck me as such an irony that they'd call me The Voice when it's like, you have no idea. And so I feel like maybe 30 years ago, there are a lot more people listening to what I have to say. But I honestly didn't feel like I had anything to say. And now I feel like a lot less people are listening to what I have to say, but I feel like I finally have something to say. And so wherever I can, I use that voice.